It's a real honor to be here, really, to talk about LGM, Le Groupe Maurice, LGM's take on creating inspiring living environments for today and tomorrow's seniors. Candidly, it's also a real privilege to be here in early November when you come from Montreal. For those of you who may not be aware, this is the season where you frantically contact your car dealership to get your winter tires installed. Not exactly. It's a sharp contrast with the picture behind me, which is my beach cottage that I recently purchased in the area. A little bit about me in the way of an intro. Had the immense privilege of working for world-class organizations really for the last 35 years or so, which starting to date myself, but one key thread that you don't see looking at my path here is a real quest for purpose that I experienced real early in my career. And that explains largely why I left the CPG world after the first 20 years. No knock on the likes of great companies like P&G and PepsiCo, quite the contrary, but I was looking for to make more of a difference in people's lives, and was drawn towards pharma distribution with McKesson, delivering critical medicine, right time, right place, in the right conditions every day was mission critical. So I felt, okay, like we're really making a difference in people's lives. And then I really thought I had found my ultimate purpose being the president of the Jean Coutu Group, which is Quebec's largest pharmacy chain, retail pharmacy chain. And lo and behold, I had a call about 2.5 years ago to go have dinner with Luc Maurice. And for those of you that may remember Luc from the conference a couple of years ago, it didn't take that much more to convince me that, from a purpose standpoint, I was about to get on a journey that would bring me much closer to my goal. So in short, that explains why I'm here, and more to follow on my meeting with Luc in a minute. Before I get a little bit deeper on LGM, a quick soundbite on Quebec. For those of you that may or may not be aware, and I met quite a few people that are well aware of Quebec, Canada, and have businesses that span both sides of the border. Quebec shares a border with 4 key states, namely New York, Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. By the way, Quebec is also known as the world's largest producer of maple syrup. Okay, you're very welcome. That's our pleasure. Also of note, for hockey fans in the room, Quebec is also home of the storied NHL franchise, the Montreal Canadiens, but mind you, there you go, fantastic. There's 2 of us. Mind you, there's not much to brag about in the last few years, so I'll move on from this slide quickly. Quebec is also known as a market that has redefined the parameters of the senior living industry in the last 30 years or so. And it's home of half of the 1,700 communities, senior living communities in Canada, or about 23% of the population. So something's going on in Quebec, and we'll talk about this. Note the absorption rate to the left of 17% of seniors making the decision to live in a senior living environment in Quebec compared to the Canadian average of just over 7.5. 7.6 to be precise. And that shift started about 30 years ago when visionaries had the courage to completely rethink the model and differentiate themselves. And at that time, they recognized that seniors might actually want to have a choice. They might want to choose the community as a desired destination rather than a necessity of sort, like I have no choice to go there. So the senior living model has therefore evolved mainly from being care-centric to aiming at a much younger demographic, looking for a lifestyle change without compromising on quality. So back to the 17% absorption rate on the prior slide. If you were to take out the pure IL senior living communities out of the equation in Quebec, out of the calculation, you'd end up at just about the same average of absorption rate as you'll find in the rest of Canada. So something's going on in terms of how the Quebec model has redefined a unique experience in senior living, and also along the way attracts a much younger demographic. You're talking about a 10-year difference between the demographic attracted in the rest of Canada versus the Quebec model. And we'll talk about this in more details. And one of those pioneers, you might have guessed it by now, certainly the most active in fighting for promoting better aging in Quebec is our very own founder, Groupe Maurice. He's actually made it his life mission. And I've had the privilege, again, of being involved with top organizations for 35 years. I've also often witnessed the challenge to reconcile the corporate values on the posters with the everyday behavior that were going on along every level of the organizations. And I can tell you, after 2 years of being around in this role and well over 150 plus visits in what we call our villages, I've been able to witness the strong parallel between the corporate vision, the corporate values and culture that Luke instilled in the organization and the behavior at every single level of the organization. It's actually quite inspiring. And as for me, you guessed it, that dinner, that fateful dinner, and combined with Luke's contagious energy and the life mission for better aging, really convinced me that I would finally get one step closer to achieving my real corporate purpose in life, or sense of purpose, that is. And I'm very grateful for this, and I wish I had made that decision earlier in my career. A bit about Le Groupe Maurice. We're the Quebec leader in the design, development, and management of innovative communities for autonomous and semi-autonomous seniors. We now have well over 13,000 apartments out of 37 communities, which we call our villages, hosting over 14,000 residents and close to 2,400 very engaged employees and colleagues as well. Since '98, the company's been dedicated to the well-being and better aging of Quebec seniors. Our mission is very well reflected in what we call our brand manifesto, which I would like to present to you at this time. It will certainly help you understand what we're trying to achieve, but especially how we're trying to achieve it. One thing's for sure is it will give you a pretty good flavor for how and why I made that decision to be here today.
The very nature of life comes to life in our nature, living deep within us, as we do within it, as essential as water, as expansive as air, as strong as stone, and as fierce as fire. But somewhere we stopped nurturing that nature, nurturing others, nurturing ourselves. How did we end up so very alone, together? So let's stop and realize that all forms of life are vital to who we are, that without a community, we don't get very far, that by connecting with others, we sustain ourselves, and that our bodies and our hearts never lie. Without compassion, there is no progress, and solitude brings the worst curse of all. But we're alive, very much alive. If only we realized how lucky we are. So let's live and love even deeper. Have more fun and more folly. Share wider smiles and brighter joy. It's time we were spontaneous, unpredictable, rebels in our own hearts and minds. It's time we let our human nature speak.
So a couple of things about this manifesto. We launched it a year ago, and as a preview, we launched it in every one of our in-house kind of theaters in every one of our villages. And I was privy to attend that day a couple of those sessions, and in every occasion there wasn't a dry eye in the room. So I think people appreciated that we put an image, so to speak, behind what they live every day. And I do have the chance of having those comments being thrown back at me on a regular basis, how what we're claiming to perform actually happens in real life. And at this point, I often get asked, in terms of marketing and brand positioning and so forth, you're in a class of your own kind of thing. Which agency do you deal with? And to that, I'll always be really proud to answer, we actually don't deal with an agency. We produce everything in-house. A very small team, the small team that could, that's doing wonderful things in terms of bringing to life our client promise along the lines of what you've seen, for example. And I'm accompanied these days by Rita to the conference. Rita's our VP Marketing, Strategy, and Innovation. Thanks for everything you do, Rita, and your team. I mean, you guys are magicians, really, in how you do things. Talking about magicians, the story behind the Groupe Maurice is really the story of a visionary. You've met Luc a couple of years ago. Luc actually about 30 years ago had a very faithful morning jog. You have to understand that Luc graduated from his master's degree was in senior housing, for example. It was a passion for him, but he didn't quite know how to articulate it back then. One morning jog, he came by what was then a very typical senior housing community in Quebec. Very basic, plain, and without much in the way of vibration and spirit, call it. And he thought, there's simply no way I would ever consider having either my parents or my grandparents live in an environment like this. And from that moment, he set out to flip the senior housing model over its head in Quebec and really influence the agenda. And to this day, that's part of the profound belief of the brand and what we've subscribed to since the founding of the organization 26 years ago. And at the core of everything we do lies the following conviction, that a person's potential does not diminish with age. Actually, quite the contrary, and unfortunately, too often in society, and you're very well positioned to witness this, it's still portrayed somewhat negatively, aging, that is. Something we've been opposed to from day one, and that keeps guiding all of our decisions to this very day. It's a bit of our North Star, so to speak. So at this point, what I propose to you is I'll take you through our 5 key ingredients of what makes the Groupe Maurice somewhat different and somewhat innovative in our field, our 5 key ingredients to our secret sauce, so to speak. Along the lines, I'll share with you some, beyond the key attributes, some thoughts that are part of our corporate values and how we go about doing things. The first ingredient would be accessible quality. And it's really the cornerstone of our offering. We do provide a modern signature, a high-end environment that really has nothing to envy to the new condo complexes you'll see or new condo apartments you'll see anywhere. And that quality is really all around what we do, whether it be in our apartments that boast larger than average room sizes, but also stainless steel appliances, quartz countertops, and the likes. For our common areas, which are also numerous and much larger than industry average, and I'll share with you some examples. For our gardens that are extensively landscaped, very generous in their space as well, and offer the opportunity to live a quality life both outside our 4 walls as well as within our communities. Something I often forget to refer to, but you might get a chuckle out of this, but our residents actually are allowed to bring in their pets. That's providing that they're not Great Danes, for example, but 12 pounds and under, you'll actually find a lot of residents bringing in their small dogs and or cats, and it's making a huge difference. So one of those core beliefs I was referring to is that older individuals do deserve a choice. So our residents essentially buy perpetual vacations. It's not rare, actually it's quite common that they'll refer to our communities as Club Meds, 5-star hotels, cruise ships, for example. They obviously no longer have the responsibilities of a home. The only thing they really need to worry about is having a good time, making friends, enjoying hobbies, and learning new things. That's what we're trying to put together, and that's what we do put together every day. Which brings me to my second key ingredient, customer experience. So we offer a product that's been thought out and designed specifically for senior clients. Every detail has been tailored to their needs, thanks to our expertise, but thanks especially to their feedback. Now, I'll give you an example on one very concrete thing in terms of customer experience is we seek extreme proximity to all the key services you can think about to make your everyday life easier, whether it be grocery shopping, pharmacy, C-store, hairdresser, breakfast restaurants. We've got numerous communities where that extreme proximity actually means that within our four walls, we've built over a grocery store, over a pharmacy. There's a direct passage that will bring you 12 months a year directly to those facilities to make your life easier. And each of our village is truly unique because there are many ways to age, as obviously there are residents. People will choose a community that suits them best. For example, our villages never have the same activity programming, never have the same menu programming as well. Our personalization is done through our customer experience program. Which brings me to another one of our core beliefs, that older people certainly do not represent a homogeneous group. And no surprise to you, I mean, you're very close to those folks as well, but as different as people were at 20, 30, or 40, no surprise, they're very different at 80 as well, and they've got different needs. That's why it's essential for us to keep seeking to know our clients and adapt our offer continuously for each of our village. So we do conduct numerous surveys, not only to measure satisfaction, but especially to get to know them better and to try to be ahead of their needs. The feedback is quite immediate. We get the results directly on our app, which allows every one of our communities to adapt in real time in the spirit of continuous improvement. Which brings me to our third key ingredient, an Epicurean environment. So we're always seeking to understand and identify what brings pleasure to our residents, what keeps them fulfilled. For example, there's no set time for lunch or dinner. You just show up with friends or family and have table service as you would expect in every regular restaurant, no different. We offer customized leisure activities. So for our average village, there's on a weekly basis over 60 plus activities tailored to, again, the local needs and wants of the community. It's not unusual for me to gather feedback that people are actually too busy to see their family members. It's quite interesting. You've got ladies coming from a yoga class sharing with you that, I would love to speak with you, but I'm going to be late for my dance class that starts in 5 minutes. And it's the same thing with their kids. They ask their kids to actually make appointments to come and see them to work around their social agenda. It's fantastic. We offer a variety of very generous common areas, whether it be oversized pools with beach areas with light therapy, whether it be bocce ball grounds, virtual sports stations, bowling alleys, pool tables, movie theaters, and the likes. You'll find it all. And in the evening, what's interesting, and when I'm visiting late afternoon, I see that often, you'll have the residents literally take over the common areas, as one would expect, engaging in activities with their friends, and most often than not, involving 1 or 2 glasses of wine. It's a very, again, the Epicurean environment is something we put forward and encourage in every one of our communities. Which brings me to another core belief of ours, that aging has nothing to do with illness. And unfortunately, as you're very well aware, It's not often the case. It's not often how it's portrayed from a media standpoint, certainly. So ensuring that we meet the basic needs of our residents is something we take for granted. And we're actually looking way beyond that to help our residents remain empowered, to genuinely have fun and enjoy themselves. That's really what we're trying to create every day. Which brings me to our fourth key ingredient, community outreach. It's actually at the very heart of our ESG commitment, the dominant sense of social obligation around fighting ageism, and certainly involving our employees, but also involving our residents quite actively. We feel quite proud about getting involved in their own community. And a couple of examples. One is our annual Seniors Walk, where we're very active behind that organization. It happens October 1st of every year. Again, this year, it drew over 1,000 people. And our residents for that day essentially become ambassadors of fighting ageism in society. So you'd see them walking around with signs proudly and having just a lot of fun on that day, but being proud to be ambassadors for the cause as well. Another example, and it's funny because we talked about volunteers this morning. We've got very active volunteer committees in every one of our villages as well, averaging over 40 volunteers per community. And those folks will also engage locally in causes of their own choosing. So both volunteering within our four walls, but especially volunteering outside in the broader community. Which brings me to another one of our core beliefs, that we all need a sense of purpose. I certainly spoke about my quest for purpose earlier. I believe we're all on that same quest. And I will share with you that I'm pretty jealous of the industry you're operating in. I'm just glad that I've joined 2 years ago. Again, I mentioned it earlier. I wish I had made that choice earlier, but you're privileged to accompany older people and them having entrusted you with that stage of their lives. So we believe that reaching one's potential also means continuing to have choices, fulfilling oneself and pursuing goals and having meaning. Which brings me to the last key ingredient in our secret sauce, our commitment to innovation. It's actually in our DNA. We've never really stopped innovating for 26 years. Not only to provide what's best for our residents, but to continually seek to understand and meet their unmet needs. And obviously it can't happen in isolation. We need to involve them, and that's what we've done very recently again this year. We've sought to go out and define the personas of tomorrow's senior resident profile or senior housing profile. So we've involved our residents actively in that discussion. And we've also engaged in workshops with 200 of our managers to define what would the residents of tomorrow look like? What would it feel like? And from those conclusions, this becomes essentially the filter through which we're going to consider any innovation going forward, small or large, within the organization. And hopefully those themes reflect our residents' needs and concerns. And let me share them with you. Again, this is the voice of the future residents. So the next cohort that comes into our place will be concerned with the following four themes. The first one is no surprise, community and engagement. Pretty much table stake as far as what we're seeking to do. The second one is, and we spoke about this morning actually, is isolation and anxiety. And when you think about the next cohort and the younger generation coming up, they all share in having smaller families, less siblings, certainly brothers and sisters, and less children. We spoke about the fact that kids travel around for work and studies and so forth, may no longer be around. Clearly, isolation and anxiety is something they're asking us to keep focusing on as far as our community profile. The third one is health and longevity. And again, our responsibility no longer is to just provide a community where, you know, we've got 24/7 home care available and so on and so forth. They expect us to be part, when we claim that we're into better aging and well-being, they fully expect us to be part of making their lives better all around and helping them live longer, happier, healthier lives. The fourth one was a bit of a surprise to me. The fourth one was inclusion. So the next generation of seniors moving in our community is increasingly concerned with not living in a ghetto of sort, just looking for like-minded people and folks, but very open to having a community that represents all the diversity that society has to offer. And I find that comforting, actually, to receive that signal from our future seniors as well. So a bit of chest beating before I close. Not unlike you, we measure a number of key metrics any which way you can think about. We've got a lot of data. One key KPI that's always high on my radar screen is obviously our occupancy rate. So not to boast, but the 98.5 occupancy rate kind of sets us apart. We're very proud. We'll never take it for granted. We actually do have a waiting list for most of our communities. So again, knock on wood, and that's something we're taking for granted. And what keeps guiding us is very simple: knowing and loving our customers. That's not going to change. And we actually hold the belief that there's three key roles in the organization that will keeping us honest in delivering our promise every day. Those three roles are the Chief Product Officer, the Chief Marketing Officer, and the Chief Innovation Officer. I think you guessed it by now. You see them on the screen. Those are three of our 14,000 officers that are working very closely with us every day in achieving that mission. So as you've seen and as you've guessed by now, they're the ones clearly influencing how we develop our villages, how we innovate. They're also, and they will remain, at the very center of our marketing strategies, not only from a public positioning, but around every decision we make. And in conclusion, we do believe that to age is to live. So aging should never be portrayed as a burden. Actually, aging should be one of the greatest privileges I wish upon all of us. I'll never take that for granted as well. This happens to be at the heart of our most recent campaign, and please, let's run the video and have a look. Well, there you go. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun so far. Looking forward to connecting either the rest of the day or at the white party tonight. Feel free to just come up and chat. And with that, back to Michael. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.